He just had a zest for life, and I think as a student and later on, it was just something that was easy to see.
Had more energy than any of the kids he ever coached.
He was definitely a second father to me.
Just that I miss him every single day.
Yeah, we met like in second grade or something like that. Yeah. We actually weren't friends at first. We were kind of rivals, but yeah, we became friends so maybe 8 years old, so almost 30 years. We had class together, and mostly out on the blacktop, like we were playing basketball, and then we made a deal, like we'd play one-on-one, and whoever won would be the better basketball player, of course, and we would win the girl who we had the crush on, She had no idea that we liked her or that we were doing that, so he won, and, congratulations, he got the girl, and he got the pride of the court, but she probably still doesn't know that yet.
One story for mine that comes to my mind that we always used to laugh about, because he didn't tell me until I was probably like 21 years old, but there's an old Nintendo game going way back, and it was called Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! And I was probably like 4 years old, so I'd make him like 14. And we would always play Nintendo, and I thought the whole time that I was playing. So this whole time I'd be like excited. I'm like, oh, I beat you that time. And you'd be like, yeah, you did, or what have you. And ended up being, he told me, I don't know why it took him so long, that it was only a one-player game. I had never been playing that whole time. So it kind of crushed my childhood dreams a little bit.
Well, I had the pleasure of actually having Coach Forni in class. And then he played for me in 1997. Then when I went to college, we kept in contact through his college years, and then came back and taught here at Casa Grande, so he was my colleague, and then was my co-AD. Him and I were co-athletic directors. I hired him as basketball coach, so we've been together a long time, and very special moments. Obviously he matured, and when he became a teacher and coach, he became mature in that respect, and dealing with student athletes and such. However, he never lost the kid in him. I remember going to conferences, and we would always be, he would always be, let's do this. He never lost that free-spirited, have fun, enjoy life spirit that made him very special.
When he was here, they started a volleyball club, and they tried to get a boys volleyball team going. So they did that for a while. He pretty much liked anything outdoors. He water skied. He used to like to go to the snow, be around his family, be around his friends. That was pretty much what he liked to do in his off time. Pretty much ride bikes, anything active.
To me personally, he was definitely a second father to me. His mind was always working. He was very creative. He always wanted to do things anywhere from lining my sister Jill and I up to do boxing matches, or he would invent games for us to play. He would line us up and tackle us. I mean, literally anything you can think of, he definitely was a mastermind. So he's very, very creative, very positive. I always tell people he was kind of a man before his time, because he was so mature for his age. And he started coaching at like 16 years old, if not younger. So he was just always on the go, and he enjoyed what he did. He loved teaching, and he loved coaching.
He played basketball at College of Marin. He led the conference in catches, was an outstanding receiver, which he was here at Casa when I was his coach. And that took him to the University of Oregon, which is big-time football. And he transferred to the University of Redlands. That's where he received his degree and played for the University of Redlands for 2 years. So, he had a really outstanding college career.
He was kind of the same old person. He had that same attitude. I don't think he changed much. He just had a zest for life, and I think as a student and later on, it was just something that was easy to see.
I met James when I was in 8th grade. I was getting ready for a basketball practice at Kenilworth, and he walked in the gym, and it was kind of one of those moments where everybody kind of stopped and turned and looked at him, because he was this big, tall guy. He was super fit back then, and I noticed his Oregon basketball shoes that he had on, so I immediately was like, I like this guy. But yeah, I knew him for 13 years, and really since that day, I just wanted to be exactly like him when I grew up. I got bigger. I think James and I talked about this a lot, and we talked about how he was for me as a coach and what he provided for me, and the support and the inspiration he provided and why he did that. And he said that it was because he felt he never got that from a coach when he was a kid, and that's why he worked so hard at being a good coach. And I think that bled into being a teacher. It just kind of was a natural fit once he got the hang of coaching, that teaching was his next calling.
The major thing we both agreed with was just the reward of what you get back from your students. He had a lot of passion for his kids, and whatever they showed, like whatever they reflected from what he taught them, like in their performance, just made him that much more proud to be their teacher, because he saw so much potential in them, and when they realized that potential, that brought more to him than any salary or anything else could from any other type of job. So,
like every teacher will tell you, you don't teach for the paycheck. You teach for the passion of teaching children and the youth. So that's when he discovered that.
What matters most is your team. Never, ever, ever think about yourself tonight.
To the basketball program, he always preached family and having a big family, and always protecting each other. And I think that's what really drew him to the Godfather. And he would reference it all the time, referred to himself as the Godfather, actually. He always really stuck by that ideal of family and protecting one another.
James is the godfather to probably, I think, 3 or 4 kids, including my nephew, my sister's son. My dad always had it running when we were growing up, and it's just, it's one of America's classics movies, so he just loved it. And he was the oldest in our family, and with the basketball program and what have you, he liked to it was almost started off as like a joking thing, being the godfather. And so I think that's where he adopted that.
I am a Star Trek fan. I tried to get him many times to change to Star Trek, but there's something about Star Wars that attracted him. I don't know exactly what it was. Maybe it was the era that he grew up in, which is the movies were very big, but we'd constantly have debates over this.
He was an avid Star Wars fan. I remember a time in Las Vegas that we were down there for a conference, and we went to a memorabilia store, and they had a whole Star Wars section. And when he saw it, his eyes lit up, and I literally sat in a chair watching people walk by for about an hour and a half as he went item by item, saying how cool this was. And it was a highlight of his trip. And so Star Wars was very, very special to him.
He had his own Star Wars room that not a lot of people knew about, and they're blown away when they saw it. It wasn't like a couple posters. It was like a whole bunch of action figures set up perfectly, hanging from strings. He had R2-D2 set up, and he had the display through R2-D2, and it'd be on a wall that my sister painted, so it was like a screen. And he was just really into it.
Mr. Forni was a very good prankster. I think I started it when he first started teaching. I think I taped his drawers shut just as a little prank to him. And I think I set off a hornet's nest. From then on, I constantly got bombarded by electronic phone calls from this company that he called up and got my number, so they would constantly, and he was constantly hiding things in my desk. He was just a prankster that I enjoyed going to work with. He made it a lot of fun.
He and I would go fly fishing in Sierras, and I actually said this to the paper, and it was printed, but we were fishing on the Little Truckee River one time, and it was the perfect afternoon. It was a Norman Rockwell type of afternoon. We were knee deep in a beautiful river, side by side, casting, and the perfect air, perfect scenery. No one else around, just chatting, enjoying each other's company, and his comment was, "You know what, Coach? The only thing that could ruin this afternoon is if we catch a fish." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because I don't like to touch fish."
He could tell you like 1,000 stories about me. This one thing he was good at, like he could humiliate it. Like you wouldn't even remember what you did, but you walk in the door, and as soon as you hear this from James, "Oh man, what about that one time when," and like you're gonna get some slack from that guy, but he did a good job of helping us forget all the bad things he did. So You tried to bring something about him and he'd change, started talking about the Warriors or something. Yeah. He was in love with Britney Spears. That's probably something he doesn't want people to know. Way before Mary, his wife.
One thing about Forni is he was really big on Halloween. And this one year he would always decide what theme we were going to be. Mr. Petroni would never dress up, ever, ever, ever. So we never won the contest, which always used to make Mr. Forni really mad. But one year he had told us we were going to be one theme. I don't even remember what it is. And then about 2 or maybe a week before, he decided, I changed the theme. We're going to be Star Wars. I'm like, seriously? I don't have any Star Wars stuff. Like, oh, you gotta be Princess Leia. And I was like, all right. So I go online and I spent like, I don't even know, $75 with, overnight shipping and all this stuff to get this Princess Leia costume. And show up in my Princess Leia costume. And Forni shows up with nothing. Decides not to dress up.
Back in college, we had a summer job. We were cleaning swimming pools. And we were out in Marin. And there's Lucas Valley Ranches out there, So he was so stoked to, we kind of cut work and we drove the trucks out to the ranch and we started ringing the bell. They have security all over the place, so there's no way to get in. So we started ringing the bell and the guy answers the bell like, yeah, who is this? And he just does the worst Chewy impression you can imagine, just, oh, like that, Sorry, I did that no justice, but the guy just what? And hangs up. Ring the doorbell again and again and again, and every time it clicks, he just starts yelling out Chewbacca stuff. So, that was his passion of Star Wars.
Coach Forni was definitely not short for personality quirks. One of the things I found most interesting and unique about him was the way he said normal. He always say narmal. And he'd be talking at practice and, yelling at us about something, and then he'd say narmal, and it would totally throw off the whole seriousness of the conversation. He also loved South Park. And, whenever we'd be talking about politics or whatever, he'd just say, oh, I get all my politics information from South Park. And that he was totally serious about it.
Sunday night, he'd call me up and say, Mr. Petroni, hey, what are we doing this week? Do we have any plans? And so we'd begin talking on the phone, and we'd stay there every Sunday. We'd do this, and then for about 30 minutes, and after about 30 minutes, we'd be talking about every different thing possible. He'd end the conversation at, what are we going to do? And so we would be talking about stuff that was just everyday life and everyday things in general. And my wife would say, how can you work with this guy and then every Sunday talk 30 minutes about stuff and we just eventually had a very good relationship. And then we'd come in on Monday morning and plan things out early or do it afterwards. But he was just a good friend and a person that was easy to talk to.
He was never like a showboat, He never bragged about anything, but he took to heart everything he did. I think the only thing he ever bragged about was that he was related to Billy the Kid. You guys know William H. Bonney? Yeah. So you go over to his house and he'd ask his mom to bust out the old album, and he'd show some evidence of lineage to Billy the Kid, and he was so. Anytime he had a new friend, that was the first thing he did at his house was hey, I know this guy, I'm an outlaw. But otherwise he's probably one of the most humble kids you'd ever meet in your life. Yeah.
I know he enjoyed his motorcycle rides. He came out. I live out in Sebastopol and Freestone. He came out there a few times with his bike, and I know he enjoyed driving that around.
Recently they got a cabin out in Tahoe, so he definitely loved the winter, the snow season, get out in the mountains and, just feel the freshness and the realness of nature.
Well, I know his family has a cabin up in Truckee, and they would go there summers, winter for skiing, and he loved that cabin, and he loved talking about going with his family up there every year. And right after basketball season, he would be impossible to reach because he would go up to the cabin and just kind of disappear and unwind. So I know that was one of his favorite things to do. I know New Year's was a big one for him. He proposed to his wife Mary on New Year's at that cabin. And so I know that, New Year's had a special place for him.
We met him during the time that our son was in the hospital. He had driven his brother Chris and Brett were friends, so he drove Chris up to the hospital see Brett in the hospital, and that's when we first met him.
James was the junior varsity basketball coach, and Brett played freshman ball and knew of James, knew of the JV team, and then that summer James took over the varsity team and was excited for Brett to come and play for him. Had called him and let him know that he was going to be playing for him. He was looking forward to it.
Because Brett played freshman basketball, and then his sophomore year he played on the JV team or on the varsity team. So
he skipped James' team
altogether. He skipped James' team, and then he was going to play for James as on the varsity team, but he passed away before he got a chance to play for him. He was since he was taking over the team and the program at that time, he was around us a lot. We had a yard project going on in our house, and he asked if the team could help, and we said, yeah, sure, whatever you want to do. So he brought the whole basketball team over to our house to pull weeds and plant flowers, and they removed a tree. They didn't cut it down. They pulled it out of the ground as a team. It was quite amazing how they all came together for him. And then it wasn't long after that, he came to us and he said, I want to do something. I want to do something special to memorialize Brett. What can we do? And one of the kids had come up with an idea of a 3-on-3 basketball tournament on a Saturday. Just everybody come in, have fun, play basketball outside and all that. And James thought that was a good idea, but he was thinking bigger. He wanted a real tournament, and he wanted it to, tournament time in basketball is right around Christmas, and it worked out to where he could get 8 teams together to come play for 3 days and have a good time and memorialize Brett. And we're thankful for that, because that it showed us that he really cared. I get emotional when I talk about James, because he was a big part of our lives. So that's what he did to help us, and to this day it continues.
The tournament is so special, and it's just I say it when I talk to the teams, when I thank them for participating in the tournament. That tournament is the highlight of our holidays. It's always hard because we're missing our son, and but that tournament gives us something to look forward to, and James is the reason for that. I mean, just absolutely wonderful person to take the initiative to get it set up, to make it such a wonderful tournament to be a part of. I mean, teams really enjoy participating and being a part of it, and it's very special to us.
We were at a conference in San Diego, and on the way down the plane, he was telling me, I had this this spot removed off my back, and and just everything will be good and such like that. And then later that afternoon, early evening, we were meeting up to go to dinner, and he said, I'll be at your room. I think it was at 5. And 5 o'clock came, and he knew that I was not a late guy, so he was on time. And 5 o'clock, 5:10, so I walked to his room, and he was actually on the phone with the doctor saying, this came back, and we need to do a little more investigation and such. But it never, and I said, do you want to go to dinner? Oh yeah, so. We gave some time. He obviously called his amazing wife Mary and talked with her, and I left. And then he came by and we went to dinner, and he just said, hey, it's something that I have to deal with, and I'm gonna take this battle on.
We were playing golf, and he took a swing with a golf club, and he goes, oh, my back. And from that point, I said, you must have pulled a muscle. And he just said, no, it's something. And so he went home and he took a shower.
I was in the shower and I ran, had the soap going, ran my arm through my right armpit, and I felt a big lump in there. The one they took out under my arm was about the size of a softball.
When Coach first got diagnosed was actually my senior year, 2007. But we didn't really know that anything was going on because he kept it very personal and very close.
Everything was like a moment for me. It was when I was in junior college at City College of San Francisco, and it was like no big deal at all. It was he had a mole. It was like less than a 5% chance or some really low stat that it could become malignant and become cancerous and spread. So at the time it was kind of a big deal, but it wasn't. I didn't think anything of it until I got the news. It was probably 2011 when I was at San Diego State, and I don't think it even fully hit me then because I wasn't living up here. The full effect. They even told me that he had 2 to 3 years, and I don't think I could visually wrap my mind around that because he's so young. He was so vibrant, and just I looked up to him my whole life, so I was like, there's no way anything could take him down like that. He kind of took on the persona of Vincero during his one of his low points. He kind of just, I don't know how, I was away at school and I came back, and he kind of was showing me this new logo. He's like, hey, it's a challenge, Vincero, I will win. And he kind of just adopted it. It's kind of become a part of now Casa's program, but even back then it was part of Casa's program and part of our family's tradition as well. And then so that's kind of where it started from, was when he was having one of his down spells, and he kind of reinvented himself a little bit.
James is a fighter. He is a fighter, and he was not going to give up, and he wasn't going to let this pull him down or really define him. I think Vincero defined him, but the cancer did not.
He was such a strong-willed person and such a hard-working person that he was never going to relent in his efforts to beat cancer. And every time I heard it came back, it was just kind of like, okay, well, he's ready. He's going to fight this again. He's going to be fine. And, maybe I'll have to go to a couple more practices to help him out, but he's going to be fine. He's Coach Forni. He's James. He always gets through these things.
We went to church with his dad and a group of people. And after Mass was over, we went outside and we were talking, and his dad offered to me, do you want to go see James? And it was at that moment that I knew, deep down that it was close. And I said, yes, I would love to go see him. So I went in and I sat with him for 15 or 20 minutes, and we held hands and we talked, and I thanked him for everything that he had done for us. And we had a good little moment, and I left the room feeling a sense of that I was going to be okay, that he was going to be okay, and it was just one of those things that I had to do personally in order for me to move on, and I was just so thankful that I got to say goodbye to him.
Well, we kind of knew it was coming. He was in a state where just communication with him was kind of one way, and I had just seen him. We watched the last game of the finals, which was one of our childhood dreams, see the Warriors go all the way. So, that was the last time I got to see him, which was just, I don't have words to describe what that meant for both of us, And he was there with us, and, things kind of started to go south, and, the family didn't really want people around to see that happening, and I wanted to be there, and they said there's pretty much nothing we could do at the time, so I had a plan to be out of town. Went up to Oregon to see my parents and just kind of get away, and I started getting phone calls, from his wife, from Derek, and then the calls just started trickling in, and I knew what it was, so I didn't answer any of them because I wasn't ready to accept that. I mean, I hated not being here, but I knew there was nothing I could do. No one could do anything, so I just tried. I just went out to a nice garden out there and walked around and try to make peace with it.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, it's not true. Somebody wake me up from this nightmare. And I just stood there with my phone and I just went, thanks for calling. And, I hung up and my husband immediately was like, what happened? And I was like, James is gone. And it just sucked the life out of me for a little bit.
I think everyone that knew him really well is still has a void and still has a deep kind of deep thought of missing him. Every day when I walk by PE, I miss him.
He was teaching here, and he came in and said, hey, you have to take my class today. And so I had an afternoon prep. He said, I can't do this anymore, and that's the last time I saw him at Casa. But I continually visited him at least twice a week over at his house, so I knew the end was coming. So it really didn't shock me. In fact, at the end there, he was probably in so much pain that it was kind of not a blessing, but a relief that he was finally free of that.
So I was actually at work when my uncle, who is the announcer for Casa, texted me and told me that Coach had passed. And I don't really remember leaving work. I just remember being in my car and driving home. And I couldn't contain myself. I was just losing it. When you're idle since you were 13 years old, half of my life at that time, I was 26, passes away, you don't really know how to handle it.
I mean, there's like a million feelings going on. My family that night, we were taking turns waking up for about an hour, and for that hour we'd go in there and spend with him because we knew it was getting close. So he actually ended up passing away when I was with him. So it was, for me, there's so many feelings that I'll never be able to actually put into words about when he passed away, but it definitely
there's a lot of people who looked up to James, and I'm proud to say I was one of them.
We offer support to them because while we didn't lose Brett to cancer, we did lose our son, and we hope that we can be support to their family as well. We love the Forni family. They're part of our family.
I just think that when we look at the impact he had on kids, it's amazing, truly amazing. And Kaleo Garrigan, when he was presenting his project, said the other day that the student athletes that were played for him and the students that were in his class, they understood how special he was. But projects like this is going to, keep him forever being a special person, which he will to all of us.
I miss him every single day. And I still walk in that gym and expect to see him in there. And it sucks when I don't. It really does. And this world is definitely a sadder place without him, for sure. But I look at when I make decisions, I always think in the back of my mind, what would Forni do? It's WWFD. What would Forni do? So, he made me. The biggest influence he had on me, or his passing had on me, was to reevaluate my life and really pay attention to what matters, like what's important. What matters and what doesn't. And hopefully not have any regrets, because he lived his life with no regrets. And I only hope that when I leave this world, I've made half the impact on people that he has.
He had a tremendous impact on a lot of people's lives, and they're giving back to what he did. A lot of kids, a lot of the community is saying, we want to do something for him, and I think that's great.
Coach never made excuses for why, he was tired or he was not feeling well when he was sick or he was sad, and he just showed up and did it every single day. And I think the players and the coaches feel like we owe it to him to do the same thing. And it says a lot about what Coach Forni built, that every single person in this program feels exactly that same way and fight for him and fight for what he built.
My mom's reaction was one of the hardest things to hear. Like, she immediately reverted back to when we were kids, and she was just so crushed. Like, James, that sweet, boy who, he was so grateful for everything he got, everything he had, and that's the truth. He didn't take anything for granted. Any friendship he had, he made the most of it. Any time he had with somebody, he did what he could to make sure that he connected and, made a lasting impression.
Community reaction's been, that's hard. That's hard to talk about too. It's been awesome. Every time I see one of those Vincero stickers, every time I see one of those Vincero stickers, it really does, as well as my whole family, makes our day. It feels good because I know that he made a difference, and he's only here short term, 36 years, and for him to have left that big of a footprint, that means a lot. And I'll never be able to thank all the people that have helped out. Everyone that was supporting us, I have a list that's never ending, including Jake Lee taking over the program, and it's honestly I've looked at Petaluma completely different during this whole situation. It's truly an amazing city, and to see people get behind my family and James, most importantly, it's absolutely amazing. And I don't know how many people see this, but I definitely like to tell them, thank you for everything, and I'll never be able to thank you enough.